So, thank everybody for coming. We're going to open up this program with a welcoming from our Executive Director of Independence House, Lisetta Hurge Putnam. And I'm going to turn it over to Lisetta.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here and to be here with all of you. I'm going to start with a quote from Helen Keller. "A bend in the road is not the end unless you fail to make the turn." As Chris said, I'm Lisetta Hurge Putnam, and I'm the Executive Director of Independence House. And on behalf of all of us at Independence House, I welcome you. We're so pleased to collaborate with CORD to present this evening's program. Thank you for being here. That you are all here is a statement of how important this forum is. With respect to sexual violence, that is. To me, the bend in the road is a metaphor for being prepared and ready to adapt so that we are responsive to whatever needs that people with disabilities or survivors of sexual violence present to us. So you're here, the panel and our keynote speaker, to inform, and our guests are here to be informed about the contributions, strengths, and vulnerabilities of people with different disabilities, specifically vulnerability to sexual violence. You will hear from expert keynote speaker, Mandy Cohen, who's the Ability Manager for Violence Prevention Programming at Impact Boston, and 5 panelists moderated by Marissa Barrasso. They will inspire and teach us about effective partnerships and meaningful connections. All of our panel presenters are impressive in the knowledge and experience they bring, and we will learn more about them as they're introduced. They're here to help guide us in making that turn at the bend. So what I can say to you is that at Independence House, we are vigorously committed to addressing the safety, counseling, and advocacy needs of sexual violence survivors who are persons with different disabilities, and we're passionate about preventing sexual violence through effective partnerships and collaborations. Our vision is an engaged community that works to prevent sexual violence. So this month is National Disabilities Employment Awareness Month. And one of our goals at IH is to facilitate the well-being and quality of life for people with disabilities who are also survivors of sexual violence. Concurrently, we honor the contributions of past and present employees, and especially those contributions born out of lived experiences. We recognize that listening, learning, and sustained partnerships are crucial to achieving this goal. And we also are negotiating that bend. We invite employers to make that turn in the road and join us in our goal of supporting people with disabilities or survivors of sexual violence, because you've already encountered them. Just 4 brief statistics to help put this statement in context. The first one, that women with disabilities are 3 times as likely to be physically abused or assaulted as women without disabilities. Number 2, according to one source, as many as 40% of women with disabilities experience sexual assault or physical violence in their lifetime. Number 3, more than 90% of all people with developmental disabilities will experience sexual assault. And the 4th statistics are that people with intellectual disabilities, women and men, are the victims of sexual assault at rates more than 7 times those for people without disabilities. So if we're serious about recognizing contributions and vulnerabilities, then we must also know these statistics represent real people and real impact, and be prepared as employers to provide appropriate and responsive work environments. We're so honored to have Mandy, Marissa, Jamie, Leanne, Janice, Jean, and Paul, and are eager to hear from them and partake of their knowledge and experience. So get ready, as am I, to be challenged, inspired, and equipped to support survivors along with celebrating and recognizing their contributions. So I'm going to turn it back over to Chris to continue our evening, but once again, on behalf of Independence House, our prevention team, and our collaborating partner, CORD, I want to welcome you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucetta. There is a last minute change. Mandy, due to health concerns, is not able to be with us tonight. So Ali, I'm going to say this wrong, Talarico and Janine Woods. How do you say your name, Ali?
No, that was perfect. Talarico.
And Janine Woods will be doing our opening presentation.
Welcome to you both. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Do you want to, we'll take a moment to just introduce ourselves before we start, as Janine's pulling up the presentation. My name is Ali Talarico. I use she, they pronouns. And I have been a program coordinator at Impactability for very close to 3 years now, like working directly with folks like Mandy, who couldn't be here, working with Janine and some of our other program coordinators. And we'll talk a little bit in this presentation about the scope of Impact's work and things like that. And one of my favorite things about working at Impactability is probably the ability that I have to build really wonderful rapport with a lot of really different people, and just getting to know people on a really human level and being able to have really great conversations about healthy relationships and about autonomy and self-advocacy with people.
My name's Janine Woods. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I've worked with Impact roughly in my full-time position about a year now, but I've been with them through my years in college for about like 4 or 5 years. One of the things I really enjoy with the work we do is getting to work with the youth and getting to watch them learn different things. Because of our grants, we're in the schools for long periods of time. So it's getting to build those relationships and watch those kids grow. I've had some kids that I've known since middle school, and now they're in almost a transition age and just really growing and watching them foster and watching them take new opportunities and being like, hey, I actually don't know this, but like, I'm happy you come back every year and look what I remember from last time. So yeah, we hope you enjoy our presentation and have some questions afterwards.
So I'm going to start us off here talking a little bit about what Impact is and what we do. So Impact's mission is to work to prevent violence and abuse by giving people tools to protect their safety and advocate for healthy relationships, sexual respect, and overall respect in their communities and in society. Impactability specifically is our section of Impact to help empower and teach youth and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So within our work at Impactability, we teach classes and lessons on self-defense, self-advocacy skills, bullying prevention topics, healthy relationship skills, sexuality education and general sex ed, internet safety skills, anything that I'm missing? I don't think so. To adults and to students alike with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Like Janine had mentioned, we work with like middle and high school age students. A lot of the folks I work with one-on-one are anywhere from adult to like older adult range. So we have a really, really wide range of people that we work with. And some of the things that we do in terms of our services are we train teachers, staff, and other providers and caretakers how to recognize and report abuse, how to create safe and trauma-informed environments, and how to support healthy relationships and self-advocacy skills for individuals with intellectual and or developmental disabilities. So the work that we're doing is kind of reaching a whole bunch of different locations. We're working specifically with people with disabilities in order to empower them, as well as working with the folks who support them so that they can continue to support their participants in having healthy relationships and recognizing potential abuse.
So what is the problem? We're going to give you some statistics if you guys need to take a break. They're a little bit heavy, so just do some self-care if you need. The National Crime Victimization Survey first included questions about disability victimization in 2007. Adults with developmental disabilities are at risk for experiencing violence and abuse at rates 4 to 10 times greater than other adults. Only 3% of sexual abuse cases involving victims with developmental disabilities will be reported. 33% of abusers are friends or acquaintances. 33% are natural or fostered family members, and 25% are caregivers or other services providers. More than 90% of people, both male and female, with developmental disabilities will experience sexual abuse at some point in their lives. 49% will experience 10 or more times, 10 or more abuse incidents. Women with disabilities are more than twice as likely as women without disabilities to experience unwanted sex with an intimate partner, 20% compared with 8%. So how can you help?
Yeah, so like Janine said a moment ago, I definitely want to take a moment to just recognize that those are some really heavy statistics. As Janine and I were chatting beforehand, before coming onto this panel, we were both saying how like frustrating and upsetting it is to even hear or read those statistics. So as upsetting as those can be, and like the reality and the gravity of those statistics, what's great about all of us being here is that now we're going to talk a little bit about ways that we can recognize potential abusive situations and like how to support folks who might be experiencing that. So it's important that we recognize that when it comes to someone experiencing abuse, what they are experiencing is the loss of choice. If someone is being abused, they don't have the ability to make choice or potentially get out of that situation. Someone may be experiencing having their body physically invaded, not having control over their body or over the situation that's happening. Experiencing abuse can also come with feelings of powerlessness. Someone feeling like they don't have control, that their power has been taken away from them, feeling scared or feeling helpless. It's important to note that there are a lot of different reactions that people can have when, if or when they're experiencing abuse. Many people may feel feelings of guilt and shame. Experiencing abuse can result in someone having difficulty concentrating, and things that have to do with like memory loss and difficulty with like physical tasks and skills. Someone can experience losing interest in preferred activities, maybe things that they used to like doing that they now don't have any interest in or avoid. People may also react to experiencing abuse by having slower processing of thoughts and speech. And unfortunately, that's only the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, so some of the other signs of abuse is the avoidance or fear of certain people or going to different places. They might have nightmares or other trouble sleeping. They might have significant changes in like their baseline of mood. So they could be really happy one minute and really sad the next. Avoiding changing their clothes or showering. Avoiding going to doctor's visits.
Yeah, and I just want to add into those last two bullets that that is often very apparent when if someone has experienced sexual abuse, usually those last two there, if someone's avoiding changing clothes or showering or avoiding doctor's visits, that may be indicative of something like sexual or physical abuse.
So how we can look for the changes. If someone has always volunteered to do activities and then they suddenly stop. If someone's loves coming to work, but then start calling out sick a lot. Another one could be if someone is usually outgoing and then they start isolating themselves. Remember that people are different. Some people are naturally shy and quiet, and some people can be really talkative and really loud.
Yeah, absolutely. And to go off of that too, with what Janine was just saying, is that sometimes people will even react to abuse with emotions that maybe we wouldn't connect with this. Like sometimes folks might laugh or be like smiling because they're feeling awkward or they can't help it. And so that's just also like Janine was saying, that's something to be aware of, that people can react in a lot of different ways. And it's also important that we try our best to also try to figure out like if abuse is ongoing. While it may not be easy or always possible to spot if someone is experiencing ongoing abuse, especially if this is someone you're just meeting for the first time and you're not familiar with their baseline mood or with what their personality is like, there are still ways that we can try to offer people support and try to notice if there's anything going on that we could help them with. So if a person has always been abused, or if they've been experiencing abuse for a long time, it may not be possible to see changes. They may have already had changes in their mood or the way that they act that just seems like how they are, what their personality is like. So you may not be able to see changes or tell. You may instead see something that's more chronic or repetitive, like a pattern of fear, withdrawal, anger, things like that. And if you do notice changes or patterns in a person, it can be helpful to check in with that person, to be aware of your general workplace policies when it comes to things like potential abuse situations. And if you have reasonable cause to believe that a person may be experiencing abuse, it's imperative that you make a report to DPPC. And so when it comes to reporting to DPPC, as we'll learn in a moment in some of our other slides, all you really need in order to make a report is to have reasonable cause. You don't have to have definitive proof of something. And in general, we often will tell people to default to making a report if you suspect something, instead of potentially letting something go on, like if there is a real issue.
Yeah, so what to do if someone discloses, you should know your workplace policy and then make a report to Disabled Person Protection Committee. And I'm really happy that I got that right on the first try, because I usually am not that great with acronyms. So when you make your report, you can call their hotline. It will be a phone call. It's going to be recorded. And then you're going to have the written report. We have the link here. We're going to share this along with you. You don't have to be a family member or a mandated reporter to make the report to DPPC. You can report just what you're noticing. You'd rather be safe than sorry, and make sure everybody is getting the services and support that they might need.
Yeah. And that being said, as I'm sure we may go into more detail, or if people have questions, like specifically about reporting, I'm sure there are folks here who we can kind of chip in and tell you a little bit about that process. But when it comes to reporting, making a report to DPPC, it's also important to remember that you need to take care of yourself as well, and that it's not your job to be an investigator in this situation, that it's simply your responsibility to call DPPC or make a report and let them know, and then they have folks who will go into these situations and going into these environments or investigate these situations. So just a note about, even if you're feeling curious or you really want to help this person, it's also important that we remember that there are folks who are prepared and have as a job to go and investigate these specific situations. There are a lot of barriers that can come up in terms of someone not wanting to report abuse or thinking that they shouldn't, or they might be made to feel like they cannot or should not report abuse. Some folks might experience communication challenges due to the nature of their disability. Folks might be feeling fearful that they won't be believed. This is a very, unfortunately, very common reason why people do not report abuse, for fear of not being believed or helped. Fear of retaliation from the abuser. When it comes to abuse at the hands of a caregiver or a loved one, there can be this fear that this person is going to lose their caregiver. Even though it's not right if that person is abusing them. There can be this fear of losing this person who does give care and support to an individual. So they believe that they have to tolerate a certain level of abuse in order to maintain having like a caregiver. So someone may be afraid of losing those supports or losing that care. So they might feel like they have to just keep it to themselves and put up with it. And folks might also have a fear of losing choice about living circumstances. It can be really intimidating, and especially to not know what could come of reporting. And so someone might fear that they will have choice once again taken away from them, and autonomy taken away from them if they report, because then they may have to move or live somewhere else that's safer. You know, there's a lot of things about their environment or their life that could change, and that can be really scary. There are ways that we can create safe environments and safer environments so that people can feel like they can access supports and have like safe people to go to like disclose or talk about like personal things happening or potential abuse situations. We can do this by creating clear and accessible policies and trainings around preventing harassment and violence in the workplace, as well as creating clear, accessible policies and training for staff on how to handle an abuse or harassment disclosure. So making sure people know, like, what are some really trauma-informed ways that we can respond to someone disclosing abuse.
And then taking care of yourself. Disclosures will be stressful. You can also feel a lot of different emotions. So you could feel angry, you could feel scared, you could feel upset, you could feel all these emotions very mixed up. But also when you're doing the report, you can feel all these emotions. And you can keep it to yourself. Calm by managing your adrenaline. You can also talk to people if you have like a close relationship with your supervisor, and talk it out when you're trying to sort out what you're supposed to do while making the report. So you make sure that while you're taking care of yourself, other people around you also know what's going on. So you can have support as well. And Allie, I believe that's it.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, so I think that's all for the actual presentation itself, but I know that we have like a whole floor open that we're going to have for like questions and having discussion about this. So yeah, I guess I don't know if I'm tossing it to Marissa.
Thank you. Thank you, Allie and Janine. That was, it's always hard to hear those kinds of statistics and how some different people are treated, but we have to be talking about this. That's why we have these forums, so that more and more people would be aware. So I really appreciate the presentation, especially around the beginning thoughts about businesses looking at policies that that support, you know, healthy relationships and safety. So thank you very much. And if we have any questions in the box, we'll collect them for the end. Okay. So so now I'd like to introduce Marissa Verasso from the I hope I got this right, the Sexual Assault Resource Unit
You
from
got it. Yep.
the Disabled Persons Protection Commission. And she is a coordinator there. And like I said, we've worked together over the last couple of years on different events around disabilities. So I'm going to take it over. She will be our moderator for tonight. Thank you,
Awesome.
Marissa.
Thank you so much, Chris. And thank you, Allie and Janine. You know, I think Chris said it right. You hear those presentations and every time you take something different. And I also think, Janine, you said something, you can either keep it to yourself or talk it out with your supervisor. I am 100% the talk it out with your somebody person. So I'm sure there are other people that identify like that as well, the different ways we can take care of ourselves. So I just want to, before we get started with the panel and introduce our experts, I want to remind folks of a couple different just logistic pieces. So feel free, if there are questions or comments or something really excites you that a panelist says, definitely want to see that in the chat box and see folks engage if there's something good that pops into your head. So make use of that. And Chris will be looking for questions and we'll address those at the end. We'll have like 15 minutes for that as well. And I do want to reiterate, like Allie and Janine just ended on, to take care of yourself. If you need to get up, get some water, go to the bathroom, it's so important. And please feel free to do that during the panel. And then the last thing is I'm going to stop myself from practicing my stand-up jokes. So instead of doing that, I am going to just remind folks about I also did a little digging and I want to let you know, so in 2021, I was looking at the employment statistics, and so across all age groups, persons with disabilities are much less likely to be employed than those without disabilities. And we know there are a lot of structural reasons for that. But we also know that interpersonal violence, such as sexual assault and domestic violence, also impact a survivor's ability to keep employment, maintain employment. Janine brought up a really good point about survivors also often missing sick days of work because they're not feeling up to going to work because of what they've experienced. So these are two closely connected issues, and that's why we're all here talking about it today. So without further ado, I'm going to ask our panelists to unmute themselves. And I'm also going to ask them to introduce themselves using your name, your pronouns, and your favorite thing about your job. And I will go first to warm us up. My name is Marissa. I use she, her pronouns. And my favorite part about my job is that I actually spend a lot of time laughing with my clients and my coworkers, which you wouldn't think just based on my job description, but it is a big part of what I do. So I'm going to pass it over. If somebody wants to unmute, I'll look.
I'll go next.
Perfect. Go for it, Leanne.
Marissa, I'll go next. My name's Leanne. I use she, her. My favorite part of my job is working with Marissa because we've had like so much fun together.
And I have my eyes on the crowd. So if a panelist just wants to indicate that they want to go next. Yeah, Janice.
Good evening. My name is Janice Philpott. I work for Triangle and my pronouns are she and her. And my favorite part of my job is actually leading the team to what I call an understanding of the importance of work and the dignity of work and what it brings. So I enjoy working with them to reach that goal.
Yeah, Paul.
Good evening. Pronoun is he or him. And my name is Paul Dupre, and I'm an assistant store manager with Stop and Shop, 43 years. Held a lot of different positions over the years. And what I like about my job is working with people. And I think that's what's gotten me to where I am today and success in my job, because without the people, we wouldn't have much.
Jamie.
Hi, my name is Jamie Thompson. I use she, they pronouns. I work at the DPPC with Marissa. I'm the Sexual Assault Response Unit's manager. And my favorite part of my job, I've been in disability services for over 20 years, and my current favorite part of the job, and even though I've only been in this particular job for 8 months, is the fact that I don't just get to work with folks with disabilities, but they're my colleagues, right? I'm not in a caregiver position. I'm not in a staff position. They're my colleagues. They're professionals that work side by side with me. And it is absolutely my favorite part.
Okay.
Shitty.
I'm already excited with all the intros. I'm already feeling excited about all the experience that we have in the room and different backgrounds. Okay, so before I get too excited and can't focus, let's jump into some of the questions. So the first question that we're going to ask is, can you describe what makes an inclusive workplace? And I will let the panelists, I think Jamie is our first panelist that would like to answer.
Yeah, so this is a great question because I think it means a lot of different types of things, but specifically to what we're talking about tonight is that I think you really just need to start by assuming that everyone's capable of doing a good job, you know, and I think it's about finding people's strengths and talents and matching the work that they're going to be doing with the things that they excel at. And that works for everybody, right? It's not just like a disabilities focused thing. And honestly, you'll probably hear me say lots of things that count for everyone. And so I think that's what makes it special, is that you're really, instead of looking at it as two separate things, you're looking at sort of this works for everybody, right? So you want to match the right person to the right job. You want to give feedback. I find that people are afraid to give people feedback, and it makes me a little crazy. And so you do need to give feedback. Be direct, be honest, you know, obviously be nice with your feedback as you would with anyone else, but don't not give people feedback. That's the way people improve, right? And help people improve their skills, give them opportunities to develop as professionals, right? So whether it's trainings that they need to go to or conferences that they want to attend, whatever it is, I mean, we should really be kind of promoting the development of those skills for lots of different reasons, right? So one, they become more valuable to your company. So that's like a personal investment interest, right? It opens them up for future advancement. So instead of just being in the position they're in, if they want to advance or do something bigger, different, better, it gives them the opportunity to do that, whether it's within the agency or even outside of that. We've seen that happen recently. And really, what happens when someone actually believes in you? You know, your self-esteem goes way up, right? Someone believes in you, they have confidence in you, they believe that you can do a good job. It really is important for any one of us. Again, this isn't exclusive to people with disabilities. It's just like how to be really inclusive. And then, you know, again, kind of going off the professional development piece, you really want to make sure that if say that you have something like tuition remission that you can offer, you want to make sure everybody's aware of all of those benefits, right? And if someone needs accommodations in order to make it happen, plan ahead. It should not be a roadblock. It shouldn't be a barrier. You just need to plan a little bit better, right? And then obviously acknowledging people and rewarding their talents, making sure that they're like that, not just they're aware that they're doing a really good job, but other people are aware of like their strengths and talents. We have such a cool group of people that we work with that they all bring something really incredible and unique to the table. And so we farm that out wherever we can. I'm always telling people like, oh, this person's really good at this and this person's really good at that. And so then they get other opportunities within our agency that aren't necessarily specific to our work, but it kind of opens them up to be doing work in other ways. And people find the use in that talent that they bring to the table. So it's really great. And then I want to say like invite input. Yeah, invite it, seek it out. You really should be looking to get input from the people that you're working with that have disabilities. What do they have to say about the improvements that you can make of the environment? What do they have to say about making the space a little bit more inclusive or to help you feel a little bit better in the space that they're in? Just ask, right? And then be open about the inclusiveness. So if you are truly an inclusive environment, you want to really be open about it, right? So you're going to be talking about it right off the bat. And that means that people will feel comfortable, whether they have a visible or invisible disability, to be able to disclose if they need to or want to, right? I think we work a lot I think we work with a lot of people with a lot of various disabilities that we don't see and we don't even realize it because people are too afraid to say it. I recently was diagnosed with ADHD, and I've been telling people to try to just normalize it, you know? And it also explains the way I am sometimes. So I feel like it kind of helps, not as an excuse, but sort of as an explanation, just so you can understand my thought process a little bit better. Marissa's seen it already. I'm kind of all over the map sometimes. But it's just to normalize it, you know, and it's to help people feel a little bit more comfortable that like we accept that, we understand that, and let's talk about what we can do to help you with that, you know. And then just be safe, you know, be a safe space for people to open up and to talk about these types of things and have ongoing conversations about disabilities of all kinds, right? Education is power, applied education, right? Applied knowledge is power. So just really make sure that everybody kind of knows what's going on with all types of disabilities and how those things operate. I was just talking to someone today about how my like perfect vision of a workplace would be one that is just inclusive and accessible to all without having to like make accommodations for people, right? It's not about singling someone out or like, you know, any of that, but really just the workplace is just sort of naturally inclusive and accessible and all of those things so that people don't feel like they're, you know, like uncomfortable about asking for some help or asking for work that can be done in a certain kind of way. If the person's going to be more productive, let's help them be more productive, right? Let's find the ways that they can really shine in the work that they're doing. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Does anybody else have anything they want to add or ditto or to what Jamie said? Yeah, Paul.
I could definitely mirror what Jamie just said. You know, I may not be totally qualified to answer a lot of these questions. However, I have worked with many different people with all various abilities and disabilities. And I think there's a place for, you know, just about everybody I've come across in my tenure. And I try to encourage them by letting them all understand that they have a special place where they're at, and the job that they do is just as important as mine. So whether you're a bagger or whether you're a porter or whether you're helping bake cookies and prepare cookies, bread, you all hold a special part in the business. And I think Stop and Shop, if I can speak for my own company, does a great service with that across the entire region. Can we get better? Absolutely. But I think I'm proud of working for my company for those reasons. I kind of what I want to say.
Amazing. And I do want to, Jamie said in the chat, and I just want to highlight it too, you are qualified to speak on this. And I think something that people think is that you have to be a disability professional to do this work. And I think a big thing is you do know, and you've done it and you've lived it. And that's the coolest part.
Oh,
Does
thank you,
anybody else
Jamie.
have anything else they want to add?
I'll add something. I think it's always good to give people the opportunity to give feedback. Not only just them getting feedback from you, but having them have the opportunity to give you feedback. I do that a lot with my transition students I work with. In my healthy relationship class, I'm like, let me know like if like what I'm teaching, how I'm teaching it. If it's not working for you, let me know. Let me know if I messed up and I said something that might have offended you. I want to know that so I can be better. So we understand that we're all constantly learning and we're all going to have good days and bad days. And I always try to, like, if I'm giving someone some bad feedback, I also give them something positive and remind them, well, next time we can all be better about this, and just to be positive about it at the end of the day. And I feel like with my place that I work at Triangle and in our impact ability section, we really try to make things as easy for everyone as possible and try not to make it about, oh, we need this accommodation. This isn't working, so let's be the change agent so it's just easy for everybody to work through like SharePoint or doing these work trainings on Relias and just making sure everybody has the option to be able to do the training to the full capabilities of themselves.
Thank you so much, Janine. Anybody have anything else they'd like to add to this question? Or I can repeat the question as well. Awesome. Okay, so let's go into our second question. So we're going to start kind of shifting a little bit and start thinking about what are some steps that we take to prepare an employee with a disability for the workforce. And
I'll go first.
yeah, for sure, Leanne.
So, sorry, I'm just gonna read my notes so I don't forget anything.
Totally.
Make sure things are accessible. For example, elevators, ramps, and being big enough for people to move around. Make sure they have the help they need to do the job. For example, a job coach or other support or device. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience. I had support with a job coach applying for the job and helping preparation for the interview. Also, I had training on dressing professional, communicating with coworkers, coping with conflict, and Allie really helped me with that. Allie and Mandy. Understanding the tasks given and safety protocols.
Awesome. That's a lot of preparation before you got that job. That's amazing.
Yep.
I love it. Anything anybody else has found that has been helpful for folks as they prepare to enter the workforce? Yeah, Janine.
Doing like practice mock interviews, talking about different questions and how to answer it, showing them that they can do it in like a story format. So being like, I began here, I got a promotion here, here's like what I'm hoping to get in the future. And then just talking about, sometimes for certain people, it's really hard to talk about themselves. So talk to them about like, how would it be to make it more comfortable for you? So like role playing it out, being like, pretend it's like someone you're comfortable with, or that you're talking someone else up instead of like pretending it's not yourself. And then also just helping individuals with their resume, because a lot of people are not used to talking themselves up. So them putting it down on paper and they're like, I don't know what skills I'm great at. And I feel like when you have to put it down on paper, it takes people not like harder, but it's like being like, great, I have to try to put it on one page and be like awesome about myself. And like being like, sometimes it's better to have that second set of eyes and be like, well, remember how we did this and you told me how you volunteered here and you did this project, and you got like an award for this, or well, you did this program at Bunker Hill. Even though you didn't get a degree, you got a certificate for doing the program, and being like, there are victories in all the things that we do, and just making people proud of themselves.
So I'm going to the Leanne and Janine professional development school so far. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add to how to support an individual with a disability preparing to the workforce? Yeah, Paul, go for it.
I'd just like to say when I'm dealing with some associates that may have some intellectual disabilities, it's always a great thing to go out of your way and introduce them to other associates throughout the building, because it's a large building in most cases, and they may not know their way around. And by meeting some of the department heads and full-timers throughout the store, as well as their own peers, I think it goes a long way. And, letting them know that, again, what they do every day is hugely important in serving the public. And we have a program that's called Associate of the Month. And I think, I'm going to have a good takeaway from here today, because I really I have one person in mind at my own store that I would like to make that associate of the month,
Mhm.
and for good reason. And I want everybody to see that. And I think that will go such a long way with confidence, building their confidence, as well as building a much better work environment for everyone. So along with that, I would tell you, we also try to use the buddy system. When they take to someone or someone takes to them, pair them up together so they get comfortable, particularly in the onset of their job. And you just, it's great to see the improvement or the confidence building. And I think that also is very helpful. Along with programs that we have on computer, we help guide them through normal learning experiences that we all have to learn in the workplace, along with safety, reporting anything that they feel unsafe about, from customer service to just about everything in the workplace these days. I give our company a lot of kudos for that as well. And that's part of the all-inclusiveness of, being an employee.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And I love the buddy system that
Paul,
helps
can
me
I
as
add
well.
something?
Sure.
First, can I add something that Paul said? I have a friend that has a disability. She works for Stop and Shop, and her mom's the customer service person, and she loves working at Stop and Shop. She
Yeah.
loves it. So
Oh,
I
that's-
really appreciated that you guys include people with disabilities.
Oh, that's great to hear. That makes me happy.
Amazing. Okay. Anything else before we move on to our next question? Yeah, Janice.
I just wanted to jump in from the other side of the equation. We have the employee, and then we have the employer, and then we have what we call employment specialists. Many people call them job coaches. And their role in this is key for success for both entities, the employer and the employee. Because with any job, there is what I call the unspoken social order of the job. There is a social order and a culture to every organization. And rarely is it documented or written down in bullet point formatted and handed to you on the first day and said, this is the culture or the social order of our organization. It's something that has to be experienced and learned. And the employment specialists in our roles is tasked with going into the organization pre-employment and learning the social order, and then starting to communicate that social order to the employee. Because the social order is how you begin to feel comfortable, functional, and finding a place in that organization. All the other supports that people have mentioned and put around are needed and required. But the social order helps you get into that flow. It helps you begin to see yourself as a part and embodying what that organization says and does. For example, simply how uniforms are worn is a social order. Okay, many organizations have uniforms. And I love going into Home Depot with their social order. Okay, the Home Depot social order is about badges. If you want to find out someone, find out who has the most badges hanging on those aprons, because some of them have like clips of those things. Okay, so the social order is we reinforce you and acknowledge you by giving you the badge, which talks about your level of proficiency. Okay. In Home Depot, everyone knows the social order of first thing in the morning, it's all the contractors. So basically get out of the way and be supportive. Okay. That's, if you're on the morning crew, the social order, and it's unwritten, is get out of the way. They know what they're doing. Just get in and be supportive. Get outside, help them move the stuff, push the equipment, get that going. Midday comes the neophytes, where you have to be there and start answering questions and helping people in the middle of the day. That's when you really get that one-to-one personal touch. And then again, about 5 o'clock, the contractors come back in at the end of the day, get out of the way, let them get their product for the next day. So understanding the social order or culture of organizations are key. I want to say thank you to Paul, because you actually just hired one of our clients, and I don't think you're in a denim Stop and Shop, but that's where they were hired. And one thing we're teaching them is the ebb and flow. And when are you going to hear that call that says baggers to the front? I think it goes something like all available baggers report to the front. So if you know that's happening, see, I spent a lot of time there too, Paul. If you know that's happening, then you kind of plan. You know it's going to happen about 3:30, 4 o'clock when we start. 5 o'clock is the push. We're all going to the front. So it'll be smart for you to get to the bathroom if you have to go before that rush, right? That's a part of the social order, because we really don't have time for you to be in the bathroom at 5:30. We really don't. So you need to get that social order and that routine. And no one really tells you, go to the bathroom at 3:30 because it's going to be a push. No one says that to you. So we have to help all individuals understand the unwritten social order of every organization that they go into. So then they can begin to understand the functionality of it and how they literally embody it and become a part of it. So along with all of that, I encourage people to spend time in organizations prior to employment and listen and hear and watch the flow and the tone and the tenor. And do people go outside to take a break? Do they go in the lunchroom to take a break? Because you don't want to be on your break and you're in the wrong place. Okay, you're outside, everybody else is in. So you're like, wait a minute. Because no one said to you, we go outside behind the plants on our break. That's not on a sheet of paper again when you check in. You know, you kind of got to pick that up. All right. So I'll stop now, but that's my point, and thank you.
That's a very good point.
Oh, go ahead, Paul. What were you going to say?
I just said very good point. And I've
Totally.
worked with many job coaches, you know, throughout the years, and it's nice to work hand in hand because we help each other, and as well as the associate.
Yeah, that was, I'm so glad you brought up the role of the job coach, Janice, and this is a huge reason why, because it's such an important part of the entire relationship, like Paul just said. And I think what you just spoke about really goes nicely into our next question, where we talk about some steps that we have to take to prepare an employer to work with somebody with a disability, and how we can support institutions and store, whether it be a store or another organization, to hire and support an individual with a disability.
Sorry, Marissa, I lost internet.
Oh, no, that's okay. Welcome back. We're
I
happy
got
you're
kicked
here.
off. Sorry.
Do you want me to reread the question, Leanne?
Yeah.
Perfect. So we were just talking about what are some steps that are taken to prepare an employer to support an employee with a disability.
So I'll read what I have. Take your time when you're talking to someone. Don't assume that that person can do something without showing them how to do it. Give them time to process what they're saying, because sometimes it takes me a while to process things. Use different ways to explain something that to someone if they don't understand. Have practice in training them. You may need to repeat instructions. Don't be afraid to work with people with disabilities, because I've had many jobs like, well, you have a disability, I'm scared to work with you. Make sure you build a partnership with agencies that people work with. For example, DDS, Day Programs, Mass Advocate, and Impactability. That's all I have.
Thank you, Leanne. That's perfect.
Cool.
Does anybody have anything else they would want to add to what Leanne said about? Yeah, sure, Janine. I saw your.
Yeah, explaining like transportation, like the ride, explaining how it can be late or extremely early, and like understanding that the schedule might have to be flexible because the ride is unpredictable. As much as we want it to be consistent, it's not. And like explain like that they can go to the bathroom when they want and they don't have to ask. I know for myself, when I started my first job out of college, I was used to being in school and being always needing to ask. So just clear that out when they get the job, that they don't need to ask, but they might just need to be like, hey, I'm just going to the restroom. I'll be back in like 5 or 10 minutes, being like, I'm letting you know where I'm going, and I'm also giving myself a time limit. And just like Leanne said, checking for comprehension, making sure you're able to rephrase the question. If you're not sure how to do it and you know somebody else can do it, don't be afraid to admit that you don't know how to explain something or how to break it down and show it. You'd rather assume or like explain that you're not at your full capability to do this yet than trying to explain it and then it doesn't work out how you want it to, and it just ends up being a miscommunication when it can be like a learning opportunity for everyone involved.
I'd like to just chime in a second. I'm glad you mentioned the transportation thing. I think people don't even remotely realize how difficult transportation is for folks with disabilities. I think it's one of the biggest barriers to access meaningful employment. We talk about it all the time. I would love to see like an Uber or Lyft company run by folks with disabilities so that they understand the things that they need and the nuances to the whole ride system. And it's awful. It's very much a deterrent, I think, for some people. But the one thing I wanted to add too is that if as an employer, like help people the way they need it. I find that people will often help people the way they think that the person needs. And if the person's able to tell you what they need and the way they need it, like if I say to you like, hey, what are some things that I could do for you to help you out? And they can clearly like tell you what it is that they need. Don't say that's cool, but let me do it this way. Like do it the way that they're asking you to do it. Chances are they know that that actually works and is really helpful for them. So do it. Try their way first. And then if it doesn't work, maybe you can add some suggestions. But I think it's really important to listen to the person with disabilities, especially if they are like telling you what they need. And sometimes, even the checking in part, sometimes just saying, are you okay? Or, how are things going isn't good enough. Sometimes you might need to dig a little bit deeper, or you might need to like mention a couple things like, how's this going? Or be a little bit more specific with your check-in, because it might just spark a memory or spark a thought about something versus just leaving it up to the person to remember on the spot what they might need or what they're struggling with or what they're doing well with. I think, kind of couple it with that too. Like we talk a little bit about like the grow and glow, right? Areas that you need improvement and areas that you're really killing it with. So, really kind of talk about both of those things too. So. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add on preparing the employer to hire an individual with a disability?
So I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but I do have to say that we have to honor non-negotiables. And the employer needs to state what the non-negotiables are. And we have a commitment to abide by the non-negotiables. And it's because it's a non-negotiable for everybody. It's not singled out. And employers have the rights to have non-negotiables. And I think we need to hear that, and we need to help people understand that their non-negotiables are non-negotiable, and we can explain it to you. We can, explain why it is, and it may be right or wrong from many different lenses, but it still is their non-negotiable. And I oftentimes, harp on Market Basket, because the non-negotiables at Market Basket is the uniform. It is a khaki pants, it is a white shirt, it is a tie. And if you come to work, and it is clean shaving, which a lot of people don't realize, but in Market Basket, you cannot have facial hair. And we had a client who did not want to do that, and they were fired, and they wanted to file a report, and this is neglect. And I go, this is a non-negotiable. They told you that upon hiring, that's their policy and procedure. So I think we do service when we help individual understand what the non-negotiables are, and make sure that they understand and that they can meet them. And if it's something that we have to negotiate or ask, let's be upfront ahead of time. Let's not get past the 30, 60, 90 day and then start talking about it. Let's talk about it up front, but let's be clear of what the non-negotiables are.
Totally, that's so important. And I think, like you said, up front and not later when we're in it. We've been in this for months.
Right.
That'll only lead to a bad breakup. All right. So our next question, and I do want to do a time check for everybody. It is 7 o'clock. And so we do have about 15 minutes left of our panel Q&A. So I do want to encourage folks, if there are questions that you'd like the panelists to ask in our 15-minute Q&A at the back end towards 7:30, please put them in the chat. So moving on to our next question. What are some ways to support coworkers without disabilities in working with their peers with disabilities?
I'll go first. Make sure you both coworkers have the support they need to do the job. Make sure your coworkers are open to feedback even if they don't like it. Sometimes I tell my coworkers to slow down during presentation. I also ask my coworkers to include more visuals to explain things to me. And that's all I have.
And as your coworker, Leanne, I have heard feedback and slowing down during presentations, and I try my hardest every time. Yeah, Janine.
Depending if with the employer, if they have the availability, having time where your co-workers can meet outside or just have time during the workday where they can all get together and just talk about different interests. Break down the barriers of you do this job, I do this job, we don't intermingle. Make it so everybody can grow and learn different things, not just about, oh, you have this accommodation for work and I have to do this job that's a little bit more difficult because you need this accommodation. Try to get it so like everybody has an equal playing field and can be 100% authentic.
I just want to add to the coworkers without disabilities, treat the coworkers with disabilities just like you'd treat anybody else. Like, please don't be special or weird or anything like that. If someone comes up and you're busy, say you're busy. Say, oh, I'd love to talk right now, but I really got some work to do, you know? Maybe I can catch up with you later. That being honest is like so well respected by anyone, right? No one wants to feel like a burden. So if you're having a conversation where you're, as the person without disabilities, feeling like, oh, this is too much, they're going to pick up on it. So don't even bother. If you have the time, great, take the time. But if you don't, just say it, be honest. I think that's really important. Treat them like anybody else.
And I do want to just highlight too, I think this is a really good piece, Paul, like you were saying earlier about introducing folks and helping people build those connections. I think this fits right in there. So making sure people meet each other and have that chance to make those connections too.
Mutual respect in the workplace. And you know, every associate with a disability or without a disability takes a piece of the pie away from a very difficult job in retail, I can tell you. So when you look at the positives, it's a win. And we just need to do a better job celebrating those wins, you know, in my opinion, so.
More celebration for 2022. That's a good theme out of this one. All right. So moving on to our next question, we're kind of shifting a little bit towards talking about trauma and talking about trauma-informed care practices. So what are some ways that we can include a trauma-informed care approach in the workplace environment and when we supervise folks?
I can take this one. I think it's really important think about trauma-informed care for anyone in the workplace. I think it's not exclusive to folks with disabilities or survivors with disabilities, because you don't know, anybody that you're working with could be a survivor, could just be going through anything, right? So I find that oftentimes, even sometimes the work that we do, I mean, we're steeped in it, right? So the whole work that we do at DPPC and SAR is about trauma-informed care. And we're really good at giving it out and really good at helping others. And sometimes we tend to forget about ourselves, you know, as the people that are doing the work, or even just working with each other. Burnout's real. And so we need to be thinking about the ways that we can kind of get away from toxic stress and make sure that that doesn't infect the whole workspace, and get anybody and swallow them up, right? So you really want to kind of have the same kind of approach that SAMHSA would recommend, the 3 R's, right? Realizing it's a thing, recognizing it as a problem, and responding to it, and making sure that you put policies and practices in place that really kind of work around being trauma informed. And that's going to mean educating people, talking to people about things that might upset people, or if people have a moment, talking about what that might be and what that might look like, especially when it comes to folks with disabilities. Oftentimes we see people's interactions as behaviors instead of trauma responses. And I beg that people start looking at things as trauma responses instead, because more often than not, if you are working with someone with disabilities, you can almost guarantee that at some point in their life, especially with the statistics you heard in the beginning of this presentation, they probably have experienced some kind of trauma at some point in their life. And so just being sensitive to that not just folks with disabilities, but anybody can really be experiencing any kind of trauma that they might not be aware of, or that they might not be working on, or whatever. And any number of things can kind of bring up emotions and feelings. And so when those moments happen, especially in the workplace or for someone with disabilities, really thinking about your approach and how that looks. So being sensitive to people, right? Being responsive to those types of things. And really just kind of being informed about safety, creating that safe environment that people were talking about, having a sense of trustworthiness, so that if people are having a moment, they have someone that they can go to, someone that they can trust and talk to about the situation. You might have a peer support program within your agency that's not necessarily like the work that we do, but just a safe space for people to talk to each other kind of in that moment in the job, where they can talk about some of the struggles or the things that they're going through, and how they can get through their workday a little bit better and easier. But really being kind of working in some sort of collaborative way and mutual support, which is going to look like that understanding that you have, and empowering people, giving them the voice, an opportunity to speak up, and talk about their situation and their struggles, and trying to find those ways to create an environment that's going to be easier to work in, safer, and aware of the situation. So, if someone really startles to loud noises, you're not going to be putting them in the area that's going to have tons of loud noises. You might not have them in the office where I'm at, where the conference room is right next door and you can hear everything. It's a joke. Leanne and I were listening to this really loud presentation next door today. We're like, what is going on over there? Because there was a lot of screaming. And at first I was like, oh my God, is someone okay? We realized it was a presentation. But if I had a traumatic experience that could have been, sparked by that noise, I might have had a really tough time there. It was hard enough to just get work done, but that could have really affected me and impacted the rest of my day, all kidding aside. And so I think we need to be consciously aware of those things, again, with everybody, not just the folks with disabilities that we're working with. But just really thinking about all those things in the ways that we can. It's about education and information, and really talking about it, and making it a conversation that happens, instead of being like the dirty secret that no one talks about.
Thank you, Jamie. Is there anything folks? Yeah, Janice.
So one tool that we've begun to explore this year to deal with that is, because that's what we call a human labor intensive need. And oftentimes our employment specialists are not available, and co-workers may not be trained or understand things. So we've really moved towards technology. We started adapting apps and having apps on folks' phones, and we say, take a break. So you have to go to the bathroom, take your phone, go into the bathroom stall, and we use Headspace a lot. for those who practice mindfulness, you know, Headspace is one of the #1 apps for that. So we, you know, put small little Headspace things on. We have other apps that they can use. We have positive affirmations. We have things written in their phones that they can refer to. We literally will teach them, you know, through the phone, step-by-step breathing techniques where we program the phone using a timer and telling them to breathe. And so we've really started to use technology to help them manage those moments. And I think from our perspective, you know, the management of the moment at the job is key. Because we can unpack it later when we have time or when you're home or when we can get to you. But respect for employers is we do have to manage this. We do have a time limit on managing it because you are working. And I know that sounds harsh, but that is the reality of the situation. And that has to be managed. So we've started using the phone and apps to be able to do that and to give them, you know, ways in which in order to work it out while they're at work and to care for themselves. So.
Amazing. I love the use of technology as a key component to that too. Any other final thoughts for this question? Awesome. All right. Honestly, I want you all to be, I mean, thankfully we all are colleagues in a way, but you guys, this has been so nice to talk to you and get this feedback. From me personally, from my professional development, selfishly. So moving on to our last few questions. So can you talk about an experience of collaboration that occurred to create a more inclusive workplace for somebody? Yeah, Paul.
I had a situation a number of years ago where I was the store manager, and this young woman applied for a job, and she had some physical disabilities, and she was having difficulty getting a job. And so due to her physical disabilities, it was rather difficult to find out where to place her in the business. So, you know, I gave it a lot of thought, and I was able to come up with a position. And it's one of my highlights of my career, I have to say, because, you know, the young lady followed me onto the Cape from off Cape. And she made such an impact on the people coming in and out of that store. I just couldn't have been happier for her, and happy that it turned out the way it did. And, you know, I thought of another competitor, Walmart, and it was the greeter. And that's the position that she held. And she wasn't able to stand for long periods of time. So, you know, I had a chair and a table, and, you know, when she felt like getting up, she could, and she greeted everybody that came in that door. And I can't tell you, but we had thousands of customers every week, in the, you know, 20,000 to be exact. And when I left and she left, there was such a void there from the customers. They couldn't, you know, where did she go? You know, but it was just, to me, that was thinking outside of the box for us as a company, and giving a position. And she was bright. Oh boy, you know, she just brought so much more to the table that I never would have thought of. She helped with, you know, promotions, because we do a lot of charity fundraising, and she was a major part of that. And I learned something from that, because the next store I went to, I did it again, but this was with an older gentleman that had MS. And he turned out to be the most successful fundraiser we ever had. So, you know, everyone wanted to know, what are you doing? I said, it's not me. It's the particular person that we, you know, employed. So I believe in it, you know, and a whole lot. So you just got to think out of the box sometimes.
Thank you for sharing that story, Paul. That was a heart warmer for sure. Any other experiences folks would like to share?
One thing that I do with the transition students I work with, the program that I work with them specifically is bullying prevention, and we go down to younger grades and we talk to them about bullying prevention and self-advocacy. And I do that work with the transition students a lot as well. And one thing I try to have them implement is like being direct about what they want in the future. So this year I've been implementing projects about different types of goals and like being like, okay, so you have this goal. What are the steps? All right, so we know the steps of like what you need to do to complete the goal. What resources do you need from like different people you trust in your life? What do you need from your family? What would you need from me? And like going down the list of being like, here's all the people that can help you. Here's what you would need to do to be able to complete this goal. And it really then starts the conversation with their families about how they can be more independent, or expanding that they could get a job and get paid for it. And it's just really exciting to watch my transition students grow, because then I get them the next year and they'll be like, I did this over the summer and this is great. And I'm like, hey, I'm happy that you're starting these conversations with your families before you graduate out of the transition program and need more job experience. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Janine. Any other experiences folks would like to share? Awesome. So we are at 7:15, and I just want to see if there are any questions from folks in the audience for our panel of experts. I have been the one asking all the questions tonight, so I want to give other folks an opportunity. If anybody has anything in the chat they'd like to place, or unmute and be brave and ask our experts a question.
Marissa, do I?
Oh.
Do I? Yep, go ahead.
Leah, are you speaking?
Yeah, can I just tell my first client meeting real quick?
Yeah, I would love that. Would you like to share that story with us?
So on number 7, says what advice would you give to employer to hire folks with disability? So I had our first peer meeting and I was very, very scared. So I walked in the room. I don't know if a lot of you know Bonnie, but Bonnie used to work with me and Erica O'Brien used to work with me. So the 3 of us met, and oh, I'm freezing. And she walked in the room. She put anything she wanted in the room. She picked next to me, and I started to tell her that I was a survivor, but I started to cry because like I didn't know what I was doing for the job, like the first job. So Erica pulled me out of the room. She's like, A, we could leave, or B, you could go back in. So I decided to go back in the room. And it was the first time the survivors ever talked after her assault. So it made me feel better.
And that was a really brave, and you chose to do the hard thing in that moment, for sure. As part of your job, you picked the hard choice. Thank you for sharing that, Leanne.
You're welcome.
So Marissa, there aren't any questions in the box right now. I don't see if anyone, but I wanted to, Jessica, are you, I'm trying to find.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so I wanted to highlight Jessica Simpson is from CORD, the Cape Organization for the Rights of the Disabled. And I, since there weren't any questions, I thought Jessica could just, for those who are not familiar with all the services CORD has, Jessica, you want to take it over?
Yeah, so just to highlight a couple of things, I am an independent living advocate with Cape Organization for the Rights of the Disabled. I've been with CORD for just under a year, and I've been working with individuals with disabilities for about 20 years. So CORD has been around since 1984, and we work to advance independence, productivity, and integration of people with disabilities into mainstream society. We actually have quite a few different departments. We have two different youth services. We have Transition to Adulthood program and our Work Readiness and Prep program. So Work Readiness and Prep is for individuals 14 to 21 that are transitioning out of school and into the working world. So we can provide workshops, and we also collaborate with some employers to do internships for individuals looking to start work. Our TAP program, or Transition to Adulthood, is support services for individuals 14 to 21 that are in school. So some of our advocates can go in and help support parents and families with IEP meetings. I know a lot of people will go into IEP meetings feeling a little overwhelmed and not really sure how to advocate for their child, so we can help with that. We have independent living, which is where I am, and we're kind of a jack of all trades. There's a lot of things that we do in our department. So we have options counseling, which is, you know, if you have somebody that's elderly and disabled and they're not sure, more towards, I don't want to say the end of life, but somebody that's elderly and they're not sure if they want to stay in the community or if they want to transition into assisted living or nursing home. So we have options counselors that can help somebody decide what's the right move for them, what's the next step. And on the opposite end of the coin, we have a transitions counselor that gets people out of nursing homes, people that don't necessarily need to be in a nursing home. So then we have me and another independent living advocate, and I don't think there's anything that we don't do. We can help people apply for all kinds of benefits, mass health. You know, applying for mass health is kind of a daunting task. It can be very overwhelming for people. So we can just make an appointment and we can, you know, help with that. Apply for disability, Social Security, appeals processes, we help with that. That's another very daunting task. Applying for affordable housing, and that's more of a skills training type of thing. So not only can we help you apply, but we can teach you how to search and apply for affordable housing. Yeah, apply for benefits through Department of Transitional Assistance, like SNAP benefits, TAFDC, which is a newer term for cash benefits. So things of that nature. Any kind of skills training, helping people learn how to use technology. That's a big one, especially because we work with a lot of people that are elderly that are not good with technology. So, you know, we can support people there, and we can help people obtain assistive devices, and whether that be kitchen tools. We have Title VII Part B, so we can help people with funding for ramps, stair lifts, even like recliners, things of that nature. So there's lots of things, and if we can't do it at CORD, we will find you the resources that can. That's another big part of what we do is information and referral. So if anybody has any questions.
I do. Is CORD statewide?
So we have 10 independent living centers in the state. We're just one of them. They're not all called CORD though. They all have different names.
Oh, okay.
But if you, so we only serve the Cape and the Islands. If you know of people off Cape that might need an independent living center, we can get you that information.
Cool. Thanks.
Jessica, can you put your contact information in the chat box?
Yeah, absolutely. And one more thing, we serve any age, any disability, any income. All of our services are always free of charge as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Of course.
I still don't see any other questions. So I just wanted to introduce Garth. I don't know how to say your last name.
Hi, Greth
Caslow.
Caslow.
So Garth is a chair of the ADA committee in Dennis here on the Cape.
Yes.
And she and Marissa and Independence House helped plan this, but I thought you would have a little overview of what a committee can do at, you know, as far as the ADA town committee.
Sounds good. I apologize for not being here sooner. I was actually at our finance committee meeting, trying to get a increased budget for our advisory committee on disabilities for the town of Dennis. That's exactly where it was. And it's because it's necessary. It's necessary for every town to be able to reach out and help the people who may need more services and may need more, sorry, it's late, may need more help in their town. And committees are wonderful. Not every town has one. I've found that to get to people together, they actually, in our town, we needed to, we're all volunteers. And I don't know if that's like near Boston and they still do that up there as well. But our committees are all volunteers and we come together. And we did just increase our budget down here in Dennis, so that's great. We're planning on things in town, such as a accessible pad over at one of our beaches for wheelchairs and people with mobility problems to be able to go out and enjoy the beach themselves. We're also looking forward to, we just got money for a electric wheelchair that is 4-wheel drive to be able to go over beach sand. So this is pretty cool. This is a brand new thing, and we're excited about ordering one and getting it into our town, and having our townspeople as well as the tourists who come in the summertime to be able to use this. We're working on, for the next year as well, we're working on a landing that's accessible, a fishing landing that's accessible for wheelchairs and things like that. So we have a lot of ideas that we want to do this year and progress to other things next year. But it's really important for each town to find the people that want to come together and volunteer for their disability committees. And if they don't have a disability committee that's already in your town, to create one. Because I'm just a townsperson. I'm just a mom with disabled mom, actually, with 2 kids. You know, and I joined the committee because our committee was doing speaking opportunities at our schools. And I wanted to join that. And 18 years later, here I am, the chairman of my committee. But it's great to be able to feel like you're making a change and you're helping everybody. You're helping not only your townspeople, but you're helping everybody who comes into our towns on the Cape. And in the summertime, that's a lot. So that's what we do here at the Advisory Committee on Disabilities. And we can only hope that every town has the same type of committee. And if not, find some volunteers who want to put it together and go out there and help their town. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, thank you. So this will, unless there's any other comments or questions, this kind of brings this program to an end. I think that this, the panel and the questions and the discussion really highlights what collaboration can do. And you know, we're trying to work less and less in silos. And so I'm really happy to have collaborated with the Disabled Persons Protection Commission, ADA and Dennis, and my work at Independence House is around prevention. And so this whole community of disabilities has opened up my eyes as far as being aware and being more of an advocate. But I wanted to thank each of your panelists for your expertise, for your time and your passion. And I have in case anybody is, just have a contact here if people want to take a picture of the, let's see here.
Chris, may I add something?
Yes.
So this isn't kind of like disability. I actually started to walk 4 years ago, on domestic violence and domestic violence with South Shore Women's Resource Center. So if anybody's interested, I can put my personal email in and you guys can email me. I know it hasn't happened the last 2 years of COVID. I don't know if it's happening. I haven't heard, but if you guys are interested, I'll put my personal email and you guys can just email me.
Okay, thank you, Leanne. And I'm just gonna pull up, can you see this? probably, if any, just these are the panelists and phone numbers. Jessica's is in the chat box. So just leave that up for a few minutes. Well, doesn't really work that way, does it? So I'm going to thank everyone again and appreciate your time, and I hope we can connect again. But
Thank you.
all right. Okay.
Thank you
Thanks a
so
lot.
much, Chris, for putting this on. This was wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.